Hi everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. In this episode, we are jumping in the kayaks and heading down to South Australia with the guys from the Bream Masters South Australia. We are fishing their round 3 Glenelg River round, which was also a Hobie Fishing Series Australia qualifying round. This was held back on April 6 and April 7 of 2024. It's a great little round. There were some great captures, a couple of mates coming 1 and 2. It doesn't get much better than that. Let's roll the intros and get into it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here is your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
Right, so like I said, this was a great little round with some cracking fish caught and a couple of really good stories. As you'll find out later in the show, we've done things just a little bit differently to normal. In any case, we had a fair bit of fun recording it. All right, so this round was held on the Glenelg River on April 6 and 7 of 2024. In the fish activity wheel, we had 64 with a major bite period at 9:38 through to 12:08 p.m. Low tide was at 7:50 on the Saturday at 0.37 with a high tide at 12:45 at 0.53. So on the Sunday, we had 80. So in terms of the fish activity wheel, things were getting a little bit better. Major bite period at 9:29 through to 11:59 a.m. with a low tide at 6:22 at 0.38 of a metre, running up to a high tide at 11:41 at point. Now, if that all seems a little bit confusing in terms of the tides don't seem quite right, it's because that was the change in daylight savings, aside from other things. So this also affected their start times and what have you. Yeah, it was just very confusing for my tiny brain, but hopefully you guys will be able to get your head around it. All right, so let's go through the divisions and what have you. So coming in with the Burley Pro Big Bream winner, we had Dylan Pace from Victoria with 1.14 kilos. The monster mover was Daniel Simmons from South Australia. Weighed in no fish on the Saturday, backed it up with 2.19 and came away with that title. The women's was the one and only Ruth Booby. She seems to take a lot of these out, weighing 4 fish for 2.02. And repeat guest Gary Hansen from Victoria was the Masters winner with 4.52 kilos. All right, and as this is recorded just a little bit differently, we're going to talk about HWS. Look, if you're in the market for a new fishing kayak, or looking to make some upgrades to your existing kayak, or possibly looking at kayak fishing tournaments, then HWS is the place to go. They have a full range of Hobie kayaks, stock the latest kayak accessories, and are really dialed in when it comes to the best kayak fishing setup for the casual fisher and the tournament angler. hws.com.au, online or in store at Shop 3/638 Pacific Highway, Belmont. Now, James offers free delivery on Hobie kayaks across all Greater Sydney, Central Coast and Hunter. One of the newest things to come in that I think is applicable to all guys that are sitting in Hobies is the Hobie Vantage Seat accessory bag. This is a bag that clips on the back of your seat and just gives you a whole lot more storage. What they've done just recently is upgraded that to a new, bigger, better, more improved seat bag. So if you haven't ever had one, definitely jump on these. And if you've got one and you think you'd like a little bit more room, then jump on that as well. hws.com.au. All right, let's get into the angler interviews. Here we go.
Okay, so coming in third place, dropping 3 fish for 2.34 on the Saturday, backing it up on the Sunday with almost a 3 kilo bag at 2.96, giving him a total of 5.30. I have Nathan Wright. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you. First time, so it's good to be on here.
Definitely, mate. You've had a cracking weekend. Like I said, nearly 3 kilos out of Nelson is pretty good going.
Yeah, I haven't seen quality of that fish in Nelson for a good couple of years now, so it's good to get those quality fish.
Definitely. And look, for the organisers, it's always a bit hit and miss as to whether they're going to have good comps or bad comps. But obviously, you've got 3 bags over 5 kilos for the total, and then the next few are very, nudging 5 kilos. So it looks like it was pretty good fishing for the weekend.
Yeah, no, it's good fishing, but it took me a while to actually find the fish because, I didn't catch any fish on day one till 12. So
Wow. There you go. Mate, you've done well to come back from that. Mate, let's dive into your pre-fish. Did you get a chance to get down there for a pre-fish?
Yes, I did go for a pre-fish. Launched at the mouth, went up to the flats. We fished that for most of the day because it actually fished not too bad. There weren't big fish, but it was pretty sunny, but there wasn't a lot of wind. But we thought, we'll give it a go while we're up here. And, we started catching a few fish over the weed beds and stuff, up to around that 30 centimetre sort of mark.
What'd you start targeting them with?
I started with the flash minnows.
Okay.
Yep, got a few on them, and then I went to the Daiwa shallow double clutch. Ended up pulling a few bigger fish on them, so I stuck with them for the rest of the day.
Interesting. Based on that was your pattern leading into the comp. That's what you thought you were going to fish?
Yep.
All right, let's roll into day one. Tell us how your day went and how you end up catching your fish.
So day one, caught them on the flats on the pre-fish, so I thought, all right, we'll go up there in the morning. Spent about an hour on the flats, and it was just not a breath of wind. And it was a little bit overcast, but a bit sunny, but spent about 2 hours for no hits, no fish, just little salmon and stuff. So
wow,
I just thought, all right, I've got to try to work something out here. So then, I headed back towards the poles and just started throwing a musk vibe around in the deep waters from that 2 to 3 metre sort of mark, and ended up plucking one nice fish that was about 37 centimetres by memory.
Okay.
It wasn't too bad, but then I spent another an hour to 2 hours of no luck.
Wow.
And then I'm like, all right, there's not much happening here, so I got to change it up. Went up the river just near Simpson's Landing there and found a cliff face, and first cast of the mussel, bang, hooked onto a good fish, and dropped it. For a pitch another cast back in there, I got one.
Okay.
And bringing him in, I had about another 3 or 4 brim actually follow him in, so I thought, fish here, and they're pretty hungry.
Yeah, good sign. When they're swarming on your lure, that's a really good sign.
Yeah, no, it was good.
All right, so you got 2 in the well, is that right?
Yeah, had 2 in the well at that stage, and then all of a sudden, so I'll put the second fish in the well, and then next cast in, bang, got another one.
Yeah.
I thought, I've got me 3 fish. That my other 2 weren't too big, so I just persisted around that area and worked back up towards the bridge, just along the cliff face there, and ended up pulling a 40 centimetres to the tip, I think it was.
Yeah.
Out of a snag. He had me wrapped up in the tree and everything, and because I was running 10-pound leader, so I wasn't going light.
Yeah, okay.
And had me wrapped up in a tree, and I couldn't pull him back through, but I could see him on the bottom of this tree.
Yeah.
Over the side of the kayak, my arm in the water with a net, and I ended up scooping him out of the tree. So
really?
I got him. Yeah.
Wow. So did you have to? So you scooped him out of the tree. Do you have to open the bail arm and pull him up through, or how'd that work?
I pulled him up to as much as I can get him, but then I could just see him flashing down the bottom, right down the bottom. So I just leant down and just felt around until and I pulled it up, and he was in the net. So then I just went to open my bail arm up and pulled him straight in.
Wow, winning!
Yeah.
That's a great capture. I'm going to say 9 out of 10 of those you're not getting them.
Nah, I was quite lucky, and then felt my leader and everything, and wasn't a nick on it. But if I was running 4 or 6, it would have been a bit of trouble, I think.
So with the masts, how are you working it? Were you just putting it to the bottom and just...
On day one, I found there was a lot of salmon around as well. So I was throwing the heavy ones so they got to the bottom quicker, so the salmon weren't grabbing it on the way down. I was more just letting it hit the bottom and just real small hops and more dragging than anything, just to keep it on the bottom so the salmon weren't taking it.
Yeah, okay. And just the black one?
Yeah, it's the black one. I got the one that fishing.com does, one with the orange tip on it.
Oh, yeah. Very good. That last fish that you scooped out of the tree, was that the last fish in your bag for the day, or did you have any more?
No, I obviously had, that was the bigger fish, and then I had 2 smaller ones in there that I wanted to upgrade. Kept fishing that bank, and then I got an upgrade. I cast it up in this tree and got it snagged up, so I started just jiggling the rod, trying to rip it out and get it. So I went right over to the bank to grab it and pulling on it, and then all of a sudden the line went loose, and then it screamed off out in the open. So I had an upgraded fish, rip it off a snag for me, and I got him in.
Wow, man, it's been an interesting capture then. One you've had to scoop out of a tree, another one that's pulled it off a snag.
Yeah, no, I was quite happy with it. I've never had it happen before, so it was a surprise to me.
Yeah, same. I've had maybe 2 or 3 times I've had a fish rip a lure off a snag. You go, I'm snagged up, and the next minute it's going the other direction.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So did that round out your bag then?
yeah, that pretty much ran out my bag. And yeah, I caught a fair few fish after that. Probably caught another 15 or so. But yeah, no upgrades. But they're all like 34 centimetre fish, so they weren't too bad.
And you reckon you're in 5th position overnight?
Yep.
Very good. All right, let's go through to Sunday. How'd your day play out? Where'd you start? Because you must probably didn't go down the flats, I'd imagine.
Well, that night I was contemplating on going enough because the wind was up and it was overcast, and I'm thinking, do I go up the flats and I should fish I should be able to get me 3 fish in the flats pretty quickly just to get me bag. And then yeah, we got on the water and sitting around, and I thought I just bit the bullet and went straight back to where I got me fish, and yeah, got me first 3 fish in 5 casts.
Oh wow, good decision. All right, so you got 3 fish in 5 casts. What sort of weight you got in the bag?
They weren't big. They were around that 32, 33 centimetre mark. I can't remember the weights roughly, but they weren't.
Yeah, so you're probably still sub 2 kilos at that point, I'd imagine.
Roughly about there.
Okay.
I didn't weighing them or anything. I thought, because of the new cold tag thing and all that, so I just have me 3 fish in the whale, and then I thought, when I get one that looks like it's the same size or a bit bigger, then I'll go through them and get me weights, and then I'll have an idea from there. So
yeah, fair enough. All right, and those first 3 came on the muss again, I take it.
Yeah, on the muss. Yep.
Okay, so then moving on from there, how'd you go upgrading your bag? What was it, all day, or was it come quickly?
Yes, I ended up so I had me 3, and then the same bank that I fished, I ended up just fishing along it, pulled a couple of like nice perch out that were around that 40 centimetre mark. So I think brim on here and then bring it up, and that's just the perch from there.
Yeah.
We got them off and got back into it, and then I pitched the cast up into this snag, and actually I was getting them right up on the edge, riding the cliffs, but I thought I'll just drag it off to around that 3 metre sort of mark, and I was just about to bring it into the kayak, and then I had a good fish around that bigger one that I weighed in. It was 1.03, I reckon it was.
Okay.
Up just getting him in about 3 metres of water to dragging the muss along the bottom.
Wow. All right. So then was that the end of your day in terms of fishing the well, or did you have more upgrades?
Upgrading the other 2. And I didn't get it. So I pretty much just peppered the bank, and then I thought I'd go across to the other side of the river. And I haven't fished that side yet, but I've seen a few other boys fishing it and stuff, and it's a bit more overgrown and stuff, and like little shady pockets you can cast right up into on that. So I went over to there and I spent about 40 minutes over that side for not a hit, and then I come past this tree that was hanging over, and there was just this little opening I had to get my lure in there. So I ended up getting it right up in there, and like as soon as it hit the water on the bank, just bang straight on.
Yeah.
It was wrapped up in like sticks and everything, but because I had the 10-pound, I just ended up ripping half the tree out and got him out as well. So.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. And I got a couple of other smaller fish along there, so I gave that other bank a rest for an hour or so, and then I went back over to it, and my mate Dennis was fishing it with crabs, and he was catching a couple of fish that I was catching. And I just chat to Dennis and that. He just pulled a couple of small ones, and then I'm like, I'll give it a crack. It was only about 5-10 metres away from me around the point, and that's where I pulled my next upgrade, which was another 38 or 39, I think it was.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, there was still fish there.
How did you go with the whole no cull tags and upgrading fish?
It was hard, especially when all the fish were good quality fish, but I had the 2 bigger fish around that 38 to 40 centimetre mark, which they stood out to the one smaller one that I had in there.
Yeah, okay.
But when I got that other 38, I knew which one to grab out straight away. But then after that, I didn't really get any other fish that were in that 40 centimetre mark, so it was quite easy to work for them and whatnot. So
yeah, fair enough. All right. So then, as I understand it, you got most of your fish on the muss, and with 10-pound leader, so pretty decent pulling power.
Yeah. I was on the Miller brawler as well, so I could actually, as soon as they grab it, I'll just turn the head just straight away from the snag. So
that was my next question, because if you're going to try and cast those things into really tight pockets, have a nice piece of kit to do that accurately. So.
Yeah, no, it was good. If I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't have got some of those fish out that I did.
Definitely. All right, so with the fishing, is there anything else that we haven't touched on? Is there anything else that I've missed, or does that pretty much cover it?
That pretty much covers it, I reckon.
Mate, like I said in the intro, mate, you end up coming back with 2.96, so just shy of 3 kilos, which is a cracking bag in any system, but I think particularly good for Glenelg. So you must have been cheering, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, knowing I had those fish in the well and sitting in a good place on day one, I was thinking in my head, if it's fishing like this everywhere, then I'll be happy to get in the top 10, but just to creep up to third, I was quite happy with that.
Yeah, and pretty comfortably in third. I was a couple of 100 grams down to fourth, so that was pretty good going.
Yeah, it was.
What did you get to take home for third place?
I got 314 or 15 cash in the check.
Nice.
Awesome. I got a TT red belly rod, 1 to 3 kilo.
Oh, very cool.
Pair of Hobie polarized sunglasses. Just some lures from Pro Lure and Hurricane and GFab shirt, some Hobie stickers, and yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Pretty much it.
Oh yeah, I got the
big check.
Check, yep. That's the one.
Very nice. All right, mate. I reckon that's pretty cool. Mate, before we head off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Just the South Australian boys for running the comp. It's always a good weekend down there. Better than working, so I'll take that.
Absolutely. A bit of money back in the kit and a couple of presents.
Yeah.
Mate,
good to catch that. Yeah, no, that's about it.
Very good. Mate, I reckon we'll leave it there. Look, thanks for coming on the show, and mate, hopefully we get to talk to you later in the season.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
All right, tackle junkies, fishing.com.au, your one-stop brim lure and tackle shop. Pick up the latest tackle, including Muscle Vibes, Cranker Crabs, OSP bent minnows, Z-Man Plastics, Eco Gear lures, and Daiwa rods, reels, and tackle. Same-day shipping. Shop where the world champion, the Australian champion, and the current ABT champion shops. Fishing.com.au. Online or in store at 18/29 Kiora Road, Miranda. Now, on the site, there's a couple of different things happening here. First of all, the Jackal Chubby. They've got a new color out, and it is Yazzie Bonds. I don't know what that means, but it's a great looking color, and I've already ducked down to grab a couple of those. But the main thing I want to talk to you about is the River to Sea Baby Vibes, probably a 10-pack in the cockle color. So it's a new color. It's like a matte gold with a black top and an orange belly. Now, I've had good success on the couple of sessions I've been out with. So look, if you're interested in these, get yourself a pack of those. I suggest you get a 50-pack of Pimp My Lure rings. So they're the little split rings that you'll need for it. Pimp My Lure also do a range of hooks. So if you're looking for a hook that's just a little bit stronger, I think it's in a 16. I could be wrong. You have to check with Adam. If you want a more finesse hook, you want to go to the decoys. I'm using the 16s on the front and 14s on the back. Now, they do tangle occasionally, but to me, it's about the optimum hook size. Whichever way you want to go, you can get the Pimp My Lure ones if you want to pull the lures a little bit harder. You can get the decoy ones if you want like a razor sharp hook that is going to penetrate a lot more easily and still have pretty decent strength anyway. And while you're there, you may as well get yourself some of the atomic sticky weights. I use the medium size, but they all work, and I use all the sizes in each packet. Jump online, fishing.com.au, online or in store.
All right, so for second place and first place, we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got Dylan Pace and Mitchell McMaster in first and second. And being the hosts of On the Cast, I thought we would interview these guys together. So first of all, let's welcome them to the show. So welcome, guys, to the show. Welcome, Dylan. Welcome, Mitchell.
Cheers, Davey. Happy to be here.
You know what? It's a really cool thing when two good mates come 1-2 in a competition. And it actually doesn't happen that often. So congratulations, first of all, for that.
Cheers. We always joked about, one day we'll both be up there and it'll be pretty tense on the night of day one. And yep, didn't have to wait too many rounds, and that was reality.
Yeah, it happened quick, but considering the way that it got into my bream fishing, and Dill taught me a lot of things, it was at some point the bite was going to line up that we were going to be face-to-face, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. And look, the results are quite close too, and as we'll get into the stories, it could have gone either way.
Oh, I wish it hadn't gone a different way, but hey, it is what it is.
Fair enough. You guys are having a cracking year. We were talking before we started. You're both already qualified, and you both qualified again, and you both qualified for the Bream Masters Grand Final, so it's not a bad start to the year given we're only in April.
No, I've got a bit of room to sit back and relax now, but I think for both of us, that AOY is just that little bit closer, and it's like probably worth chasing down a little harder. I'm guessing Simon and Tony are probably getting a little more nervous now.
Yeah, how good's that? I did say, Dylan, you're obviously in the hot seat in terms of being right up there, but Mitch, you must be hot on the heels there as well.
Oh, my Tasmanian rounds let me down. Again, much like this competition, a few things went wrong on the second, one of the days of each event. But I'm not sure. I'll be up there somewhere, but I won't chase AOY. Dill can have this one. I'll go for 5 rounds to see where I finish up, but I don't think I'll be in the race for this one.
Fair enough. Hey, we'll see at the end of the year. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with pre-fishing. We'll start with you, Mitch. Mate, did you get a chance to get down there for a pre-fish either before or on the day before the comp?
I did. So I do what I always do. I leave Geelong at some ungodly hour in the morning, like I always do. So the morning run is one of my favourite things. So I left Geelong at 2:30 in the morning. As you do most times before any fishing trip, let alone a fishing competition, the sleep is poor. I had about 4 hours of sleep, so I wasn't running on a great deal except for coffee. So made my way from Geelong, got down at about 6:30, realised that I was probably down there about half an hour too early because it wasn't dark. It wasn't daylight until 7:30, so slept in the car for a little bit. Then I got a phone call from Dill as he is driving his way down to Donovan's, which he'll talk about in a minute. So that woke me up, and from that point, I got myself ready and on the water. So I launched from down the front, and my plan for the day was to head up and fish my way upstream. So maybe fish my way up towards Donovan. It's a really funny thing, though, because over the years I fished the Glenelg a few times, but I've never fished it above the bridge from Nelson. So if anyone's familiar with it, there's the bridge just up, the main bridge that takes you from Victoria to South Australia or vice versa. I've never fished above it, and I've never actually fished for bream in the bottom part of the estuary. So I've only fished for bream above Pritchard's. And that was 16 years ago that I fished the system.
Right.
I've only for Mulloway since then. So all the spots that I was heading up to and looking at was just a new place to me. And I obviously listened to your podcast, Deethy, and listened to the last couple that were on there. And in my mind, I thought, this is going to be really tough. So I hope I can find a consistent bite. So I made my way up and looked at some of the shacks on the way up, and pretty quickly got to the monument, which is just upstream of the bridge. Ran into Dale, which was going to be one of my housemates, and Johnny Rayo as well, which was one of my housemates too. So chatted to those guys, fished our way up a little bit, and pretty quickly caught some fish on a mudblood Daiwa grub, sorry. So I thought, great, beauty. That fish was probably that 900 class fish, which was turned out for the comp is about what you needed to be right up there. And I was like, wonderful, great. Elite plastics for the comp, perfect. Let's go try it. Let's go work our way up and see what else we can catch them on. So worked my way up, got talking to Ryan Newman, who unfortunately isn't going to make it onto the podcast because he ended up in 5th spot. But what I will say is a giant thanks to him, because we sat there for half an hour. I talked to him on social media for a while. And he was saying, oh, yeah, I'm getting all my fish on muss. And I was like, beauty, I love muss. That sounds fantastic to me. I've heard about this here before. I'll put myself on a muss. Yeah, it was a great tip. He probably shared too much information and he should have just kept it to himself, but he did. So thank you, Ryan, for all that information. So it's mosey my way on up towards Donovan's, and I actually didn't catch – I think I caught one more bream on a grub as well, and I moseyed my way on up to where I found Dill. And being Dill from that point on, we pedalled our way up, and Dill showed me some areas that he's, don't fish that, leave that for the comp. And then Dill pedalled his way up, way back up left, and I kept fishing. What I did do was fish those spots very lightly, but what I did do is I missed fish on everything. I didn't land a single fish up there, actually. So I missed a few fish on muss, and I was fishing straight through fluorocarbon for the muss at that point, so 4 pound straight through fluorocarbon, tight to the edges, and missed some fish. I also missed a fish on an olive crab as well. And at that point, I was like, cool, day's ticking along, made my way back down towards the estuary because I wanted to go fish the front as well. But by the time I got down there, it was blowing a bit more. Anyway, ran back into Dale and Johnny. They were still pre-fishing, and I think that might have been nearly around 2 o'clock. Anyway, went up to one spot, found this little rock that looked really lovely, and put in a nice cast with a muss, straight through fluorocarbon again, and landed a really nice fish. And that rock proceeded to, in the exact same cast, actually produced a fish each day for me. The second day I busted off and lost my favourite muss, but it would have produced a good fish for me, but still got lucky on that one. But yeah, from that point, went back down, had a quick duck my head out and had a look at the mouth, but the front of the system down where the poles are, but it was really windy, and called it a day about 3 o'clock. So a big day, about 15 kilometres of pedaling.
Yeah. While you were talking, I was looking at Google Earth and watching where you're saying you were going. I'm like, that looks like a long way to me.
Each day.
You tuned in on a couple of patterns, I guess. You got them on plastics, you got them on musses and potentially crabs.
Yeah.
So you had a good plan.
I also got one on a couple on risky critters as well, a little bit up around that Donovan's area too, just on some edges. Sort of caught them on a few different things, and I thought, okay, they're going to eat a few different things. I thought I might be able to lean on something else.
Yeah, and moving into comp, we'll come back to comp day, but how many rods do you take in?
I probably am the most porcupined person out there, aside from if Paul Malov was to come for a competition, but unfortunately he has a pro angler, so he lays his rods down, they all hide away. But my pre-fish and first comp day, I take 7 rods.
Okay, all right, so you're well equipped. Dylan, tell us about your day, mate, on pre-fish. How was it for you?
Oh, pre-fish was a pretty relaxing day, actually. I didn't get up stupid early. I just wanted to hit the water at about first light, bit afterward. Didn't charge my phone, so I was like, I was going to launch at Simpson's Landing and just make my way up, but I was like, nah, stuff it. I'll drive an extra few minutes to Donovan, sit there, let my phone charge for a bit, and that ended up being pretty good. Launched at Donovan, started making my way down to just through Taylor's Strait, that whole section of the river. Now, in the lead up to the comp, I knew we'd be entering a transition period, so I wasn't too sure whether it was going to be, say, bent minnows and pink grubs with tailing fish on the edges, which is the Glenelg is very good for, or if it was going to be slightly deeper. So I hedged my bets, had a few things tied on, started off throwing EXDR spikes. And what I was looking for were banks that I hate. Like the Glenelg is a system that's reasonably familiar to me. I fished it a lot when I lived down in Southwest Victoria a few years back. And yeah, I didn't want to pepper my spot. As Mitch said, I've had a few banks in my mind and I knew if I drilled them on, or if anyone touched them or drilled them on pre-fish, it was nearly game over on those. Kind of just fished banks that are normally average to see if I could just see what the fish were eating. And yeah, spikes were going really well on the deeper walls, just fished pretty aggressively, banging them into the bottom. And you normally get a fish off each wall you do that on. And what I was doing is holing along and catch a fish on that wall and this lure go to a different one that looks half-assed and throw something else. So started to do that with risky critters as well, found slightly better fish reading critters, but the bite was a little crappy. And then I decided what I was noticing was I couldn't see any fish. I knew they were sitting deeper and the muss is going to be the perfect lure for that situation. Alternating between the muss and the crab, again, Glenelg, typically a very good crab fishery, but I could not get a crab eaten. So straight away I put the muss on and it would have been within a few casts. I probably had one about 39, 40 centimetre tip and I'm thinking that's a cracking fish for here. If I can replicate that on one other wall that I normally wouldn't fish, I think I've got something special. Did that, and sure enough, I probably pulled another 2 or 3 fish, and I thought that's my pre-fish done up in that part of the system. So pretty much I bumped into Mitch. We had a chat. We ended up going back up further, having a bit of a yarn, as he mentioned, and I relaunched, went down the front, found the fish down the front were much smaller, much worse conditions. So it was great. I could rule that off. And yeah, that was pre-fish. A very simple day, but paid off well.
Okay. All right. With all that in mind, how many rods did you take out for the day one and what did you have tied on?
Oh, for day one, so pre-fish had 6. Day one, I scaled it back. I would have had, testing my memory here, I think I had a risky critter, bait junkie grub, a must. It would have been, definitely the spike. And I might have had, I think I went to another must. I think I had the clicker and the standard, actually.
Okay. A nice spread of lures. Now, I assume you guys were staying in the same house?
Oh, pretty hectic house, that one.
What about, did you guys have a chat and go, okay, I'm going to go here, you're going to go there? Did that sort of thing happen?
A little bit. On the starting line, I was like, I thought I'd go to one spot. And in the end, I just beelined it to the top of the system like I always do.
Yeah.
So I changed my plans on the start line, but we were pretty neck and neck, me, you and Prikey for the first day, and then we all peeled off and kept doing our thing.
I think Prikey peeled off early, then I reckon I went another 2Ks past him, then Mitch probably went another 2Ks past me. Started fishing, and Mitch went straight to where I wanted to end up, but I knew there were some other banks to hit before that he hadn't found.
All right, let's start with you, Mitch. On day one, you end up dropping 2.68 on the scales. Give us a bit of an idea about how your day played out and how you ended up catching your fish.
All right, so obviously started down the front, and like I said before, me, Dylan, Pryke, were sort of pedaling away up. I think averaging around that 7.5 kilometres per hour. Anyone that knows me really, really enjoys. I just enjoy pedaling long distances, fishing around no one. I try and make comp days feel as social as possible. So I'll use my legs and get away from people. So yeah, like Dill, I think I had a risky critter, a grub. I think I had 2 muss, 2 crabs, and 1 spike tied on for my 7 rods. So I headed my way up and basically went fairly high up towards Donovan's, and that's where I did, virtually all of my damage. Straight off the bat, I fished sort of a point up pretty high, and like the day before, I actually didn't fish it, but it was one of the ones that Dill's like, oh yeah, fish that one. And actually found that for the whole comp, it wasn't a very good wall. And it was pretty indicative, and I think Dill will relate to this as well, is that like the sheer vertical walls with no rubbly bottom on them and no woody habitat didn't fish that well. And I bet you Dill is probably going to say the same thing, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we discussed this as the comp went on. But yeah, that didn't fish too well. So I went across. I actually caught 1 small fish, and I forgot a ruler. And I was like, oh no, here we go. Fish are got to be 29 centimeters. This thing looked awfully close to that, and I was like, oh, if it's in the line at the end of the day, they can measure it. And if it's too small, we'll throw it back. So I shoved it in the live well, turned it on, and anyway, fished the rest of that little wall. Didn't catch anything. But then I turned around and fished probably Dill's favorite corner, and that was the one that I dropped a fish on, a crab, and then missed 2 fish on the muss the day before, which I was quite thankful for, and I thought good a place as any to really kick it off. And virtually within the first cast, I landed an 800-gram fish on a muss. So pitching into the wall, letting it sink, and then just virtually rattling the rod tip, letting it sit there, chilling out, rattle the rod tip, relax, rattle the rod tip, and then it rattled back at me, 800-gram fish.
Nice.
But what I did change from pre-fish is, and I think Bill and I had this bit of a discussion, I think we might have even discussed it as a house, is that the braid leader combo tended to work a little bit better in this situation. So on that day, I was running a braid leader combo for all my muffs, and I think, Dill, you were doing the same thing?
Yeah, like it was just the way the bite was and the way your positioning was just set up entirely wrong for straight through fluoro, especially the way that fish fight in there. If you've got that much stretch in your sort of whole system, you're going to get yourself in a bit of strife. So you very rarely I will fish muss on braid leader, but this was one of those situations where you needed to.
So it was the same rod setup that I used, but I was just braid leader on this time. And you were just feeling the little rattles and the little ticks, because sometimes it wasn't a clunking bite like you would get with a sinky when you were fishing them on vertical structure. So that braid leader combo definitely played a part in fishing these lures a little bit better for the day. So from there, I landed my 800-gram fish, put that one in the live well. About 2 minutes later, after I pedaled back around, about 2 meters away from where I caught that, same thing, rattle, 900-gram fish. I was thinking, all right, we are, according to last year's results, we must be doing pretty well. So from that point, I did the same thing, live well that fish, and then pedaled back around, and about 4 or 5 meters down the bank, clunk, another 900-gram fish. And I was like, okay, this is starting to look pretty good. I was pretty happy with that situation. And anyway, from that point, it slowed down a little bit for me, because by that time I'd spent an hour pedaling to get to where I wanted to go to. I'm just straight pedaling 7.5 k's an hour to get to where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So at that point, by the time I put all my fish in the well and upgraded, it was 9:15. So it was, I looked at my phone, it was about 9:15. So it only took me about an hour to have that first upgrade in the well and sit myself. I think that was around 2.6-ish kilos on my scales. There is however the math works out. Anyway, that's what my scale said. So I was like, that's looking pretty good. I'm not going to fish too hard up here and hopefully leave some fish for tomorrow, which I shouldn't have done because Bill's going to come back and talk about his first day. But from that point, I fished my way up a little bit, caught another small fish. Obviously wasn't going in the well, so I started heading back down because I wanted to rest the legs a little bit for tomorrow, knowing that I was most likely going to come back up there So I was going back down and chatted to a few people. I think I chatted to Dylan on the way up and chatted to a few people heading back down. Saw Ryan, Joshua Bland as well, which are a couple of guys that were fishing muss on the first day that ended up quite high in the tables as well. And from all reports, I was like, I was doing pretty good. And I was like, all right, this is feeling nice. So I made my way back down further. And by that time, I think it was must have been around 30-ish by the time I entered the Simpsons landing area, so down near the Simpsons boat ramp area. And anyway, as I said earlier, I went to my little rock that I caught a nice fish off the day before on the muss. I pitched the muss back in and let it sink down, gave it the little muss rattle, and then clunk, hooked a really good fish, landed it, and that was an 850-gram fish according to my scales. So that tipped me into that 2.65 kilos on my scales, and they've always weighed light. And from that point, my day was done from there. I caught a heap more fish after that. Actually, the fishing really improved. At about 10 o'clock, the fishing slowed down, and it seemed to have picked right back up around that 12:30 mark. So I'm not sure if there was any major or minor bite times that line up with anything that you might have seen, but that's how the day planned out. And I used that time in between to find that sort of backup area that I thought I might have to come to if things got really bad on day 2.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things about that. Just with your braid leader, what were you running?
So I was running, actually for the very first time, I was running the new Daiwa Expedition braid, so the J braid Expedition stuff. And I was running that, I think, in 0.8 PE. So whatever that works out.
Yeah. So solid and leader.
I was running 6-pound YGK Ultilos, which I'm pretty sure so was Dylan.
Best stuff ever. But it's like I said, breaks at 7.1 or something pounds.
7.3 pound.
Yeah, so you can really lean into it when you need to rig fish out of structure.
So it works so well. And with this, seeing as I do that straight through fluorocarbon normally with thinking baits, much the same as do, I fish a foot, probably 2 rod lengths. So you still had quite a lot of cushion. And if a fish did get you in that hard timber, you could possibly lean one out. If it hit rocks, you were done.
It was all over. Okay. So a couple of things about that. So you weighed in, I think, 2.68. And now if we go back a year to Dale Baxter winning, he won with 4.14 kilos for the 2 days and a 2.25 on day 1. So it gives you a bit of an idea about the difference in the 2 years comps.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking to DB at the end of it, and he was like, I caught a much bigger bag than I got the previous years, and I didn't even finish in the top 10. So I think he said that he was blaming something else, but I think I wised him up that maybe it was the angler at fault for his competition this year.
Well, there you go. Could well be. That's all right. We know Dale's listening, so, mate, well done for last week. That's it. All right, let's move on to Dylan. So let's have a look at what you weighed in. So you were, I think, Mitch, you were in first position overnight.
Yep.
Is that right? And then Dylan was just behind you on 2.62. So Dylan, give us a run through of how your day went. And you did the 7.5K an hour thing as well? Because I can't keep up with that.
Oh, yeah, I wish I didn't, but it has to be done. So made the sort of big trek up, and I was like, I'll just let Mitch get to where he wants. So I had a couple of banks left on pre-fish that I just knew should be set up. And Mitch mentioned, now, you got to find the right sort of substrate in the Glenelg on any given day. Establishing that on pre-fish, I definitely found gently sloping walls with rubble with a lot of vegetation is what you had to have. Those big steep walls sometimes are fantastic. This weekend, not as great. So what I was looking for was particularly, like, this is where knowing a few of your like local indigenous plants come in, but I found a lot of the brim were really held up under melaleucas, which are just the species of tea tree. Finding that on a bank with with a bit of an undercut, bit of rubble, and you were on. So I found 3 big points where current was sweeping past. Now, keeping in mind how the river's blocked, current was a hot commodity. It was not easy to find, but if you found current hitting a point, you found bigger average fish stacked up there feeding. So first few banks I fished, I was getting, I reckon within the first probably hour, funnily enough, I didn't get a fish, but then I found those banks where the current was hitting, went straight there, and all of a sudden it was reasonably consistent with getting a few rattles, taps, and getting quite a few fish all either side of 35 centimeters, which usually for the Glenelg, if you catch a bag of that, you clap in your hands, happy days. Like they're respectable fish in that system. Yeah, so there's a few sort of small upgrades here or there, but I knew I'd probably be able to find a few better fish on that spot. Made my way up a little bit further and fished a bit of fresh water. I noticed other anglers going past. Up in that Taylor Strait area at this stage, well known, always produces. But yeah, found one wall that was a little bit deeper, a bit more undercut, but had more solid timber. So plucked away, pulled a fish that was 39.5 tips. So I was thinking, okay, that's a much better upgrade. Turfed out a 35, put that in the well. Made my way up quite a few bends up to where I knew Mitch would be. So I could see him. We went and had a chat, and he was going, I think you were going back down at that stage, Mitch, were you?
Yeah, I was heading back down. We had a bit of chat, and then, yeah, you made your way back up. I think that was around one of the cabins. So I think basically I saw you pedal onto my point.
Yeah, so I went to, wasn't your point straight away. I went into another, funnily enough, a really deep wall that has good rubble at the bottom with a bit of a muscle. I know for a fact it has a big muscle bed at the bottom. I pulled them up on crabs and things before. So I fished that one. What I ended up doing, I reckon I had 2 casts, and I was like, I'm not feeling this. I'll just put a third in and see if anything happens. And I literally go to rattle my muscle, and it's just, wait, bang, got a good fish that was, I think it was 960 grams. And I was thinking, okay, here we go. This is getting better and better. So then I went to the point I specifically told Mitch not to fish, but I knew he would. That's all right. And started picking that apart and got a lot of fish around, anything from about 32 tips to 36, 37. And I was like, I know there will be bigger fish here. So I made my way up that a bit more. And I knew there'd be some more shallow, rubbly banks. But the big thing with this bank is it's got a solid undercut that goes back maybe a meter in really shallow water. And I've had a suspicion that Mitch definitely overlooks this part of the bank. And I won't even tell him where it is. So I've got that for next year. But yeah, ended up throwing in behind a pole, just a man-made, just big old treated pine pole post that sits out of the water. And the second the mast sort of started sinking more than, probably got down about a foot, hit the first lip of the top of the drop-off and just took off at a rate of knots. Saw the braid cutting water, so I leant into that. This fish has just wrapped me around a post and just kept going through the other side. So I've had to free spool it, go in, get my braid off the wood, come back tight to the fish. It luckily didn't get me on anything else. Decided to swim into the river, and that was a 1.06 kilo fish. So that was enough where I was like, going to leave this bank. Whether I come back to it or not, who knows? But yeah, from that, I was pretty content with my bag. Made my way down a little bit further, caught a few more fish around Simpson's Landing. I honestly found the bite went really tough from then, and that was my day one. But all sort of fishing, again, the mast, like Mitch said, it was pretty stock standard casting it, rattling it. Biggest attribute was just having that slightly heavier leader. If you fished, you got to think with the mast I'm running them, Dowley has them stock standard with decoy YS25 that are 14. So I really like those hooks for a system like the Glenelg where you don't have to worry about fish running through the most unbearable structure. I was fishing them on a Miller rod blade freak just so I had a bit of forgiveness in the overall setup, but when that rod loads, you can have it on a big bungee cord. Your fish is almost on a bungee cord. It's nice and shock absorbent, but you can put your kayak in reverse and tow anything out if need be. Worked for me. I didn't lose any fish, didn't get busted off. All in all, I was pretty happy with the way I fished, and yeah, bites that mattered ended up in my live well.
Oh, there you go. The good thing about that is, like we said in the beginning, 2 mates. Now, day one, you're 1-2 with Mitch in front.
Woo!
Let's roll into day 2 and see what happened. So, Mitch, you ended up you weighed in 2.75, so you went a little bit better on day 2.
Yep.
Tell us about your day, mate.
How I wish my day planned out was that Dill would end up in second and I would end up in first. But as our social fishing would suggest and some of our other things, Dill tends to pick me a lot of the time. So I was worried about that. But,
Fair enough.
I know. He does it all the time. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. And everyone knows that Dylan is an actual brim.
Fair enough.
So
I was going to say, you can't compete against that. If you're fishing against a brim,
I think he's got brim DNA, in fact. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, it might even smell like a black brim from time to time.
The shorts.
Those Paisley short are full of mojo. I'll sell them for the highest bidder.
I did see the shorts in the photos, and I was impressed, I got to say.
Yeah, have you seen how faded they are now? The amount of mojo and brim slime in there is a bit ridiculous. I'll tell you now.
Works a treat. They're disgusting, but let's not get into Dill's personal hygiene. We're talking about fishing.
Fair enough.
So anyway, we're all heading up again. Me and Prikey always at the front of the pack. Actually, I think on this day it was me, Prikey, and Dill just side by side, looking rather uniform, like a bunch of friends going into battle essentially. But it turns out the war was within ourselves. So headed up, and again, as I do, I was sitting around 7.5, and then as I broke away from Dill, Prikey turned left and went to his banks, and Dill and I were talking, and then went radio silent, and then I put it into fifth gear, and I think I was sitting on about 8.5 kilometres, charging down to get to my banks.
That's not even possible.
It's possible. This day was a little bit windier, so actually at one point I saw that I was doing 9.1 kilometres an hour, just straight pedalling the outback.
Wow. So let's just put that into perspective for someone who's not been in a Hobie. I probably average about 6.5. I can do 7, I can do 8, but I can't sustain it.
Yeah.
So 6.5's about where I max out as a long paddle.
My legs were hurting just looking at him as he went off into the distance.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I seem to have these legs that are built for pedaling a kayak.
There you go, mate. You're reaching into Luke K territory, where Luke K's got kids and he actually tows his kids behinds and they ski. That's how fast he goes. I reckon you're right up there with him.
I have heard about his legendary legs.
We'll have to get Mitch up to the Georges to test that out, I reckon.
Oh, I'd like to see. We should. You know what? We should have a Hobie race. We should have a kilometre race and see who can do it. That would be very cool.
I want to train for that.
I think Prikey will win, but he's got flames on his Hobie now.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
Can't argue with that.
He has a very fast-looking kayak. So anyway, back to the fishing side of things. So I've made my way back up, and I passed. It's really annoying, and Dill's going to get to this because this is where he pulls his fish. But I pedaled past this bank, and I was like skirting out a few points that I didn't hit the day before. I left them because I wanted to come back to them and fish them on my way back down. So I had my plan. And anyway, so I went up, fished the bank that I caught the first fish off yesterday. I like to have a few practice casts, and before I hit the bank that I really want to fish, just to make sure that I feel like I'm in rhythm with my lures, before you go trying to go to your bank that you really want to fish. And I think it's a good suggestion for a lot of people is before you go hit a spot, try and find your groove somewhere else for a few minutes, get that technique rolled in, feel good, feel loose, and then I went to my bank.
Yes, so what I want to say about that is just in all the podcasts that I've done, I don't recall anyone ever saying that to me. That's a really cool tip, and it's worth mentioning. You just basically hone your skills in on the day to make sure that you don't mess up your number one spot.
Yeah.
So absolutely brilliant. I've done a lot of interviews, and no, I don't recall anyone saying that, so that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get back into it. I touched up on what I wanted to do because I really felt like I was in first place. I thought that I had the chance to win, and I wanted to hit the spots that I really wanted to hit. I wanted to hit them in form. So I went through into a spot, fished my first spot, got a little rattle on my thing. I was like, great, everything's working. The bite's going to come. So I moved across actually slightly further up from the point that I was fishing. And I was, again, like Dill found, especially on the second day, is that slopey bank that had tea tree over it or like hard timber structure over the top of it actually produced a lot more of those fish. And yeah, Dill's definitely going to agree with that statement, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. And it was even more so on day 2. I know you found this for a fact, but finding the bank that had Melaleuca, that was the main tree you needed to find. It had to be touching the water, growing in the water since the river was so high, flooded in. You got to think all of those flooded trees holding shrimp. There's mussels starting to grow, barnacles underneath it. It's just food heaven. Now, you find that near an undercut bank, and it was just, that's where you're going to find your big fish. Simple.
Yeah, so it was virtually like anywhere that had a pocket of tea tree into the water or hard sort of timber into the water, and there was a boulder that you could see just under the surface, but you could see a crevice behind it. Virtually, it was almost guaranteed that you would find fish. Now, there's not many of those pockets that you can see, but there's quite a few really, but the ones that haven't been fished were few and far between. I fished first cast in on a bank, pulled a 30-something tipper, 32, I think it was, and I was like, yeah, that'll do. Weighed 500 and something grams, and I was like, oh, in the live, I'll one in. I'll better to go in with 3 than go in with throw some squeakers out early on. And then went through, missed another fish, and I was like, great, we're working. There's a lot of fish around. And then cast in, and second fish of the day was a 920 gram, and I was like, you beauty. The fish are bigger than yesterday. That's a really good place to start. And I was like, we can build from here. So I fished the same point as I did yesterday because why? You have to, right? If you pull the fish from there the day before, you got to go fish it again. And I filled my bag with them, but again, there were there was a few small fish off that, but nothing substantial. But I was talking to Paul Malov the day before, and he said, and I won't name it because I know that he really likes this bank, but he said, head a little bit further up. And by a little bit further, there may be kilometres in there. I'll let anyone else be the judge of how far I actually went up. But there was a little bank, and he fished that one, and I'm pretty sure it was the same bank that Dill fished. In and arounds anyway, but I fished a lot of it, and it's actually really slow on that day for me. I really struggled there. Got a couple of little squeakers, but I said Dill. At that point, actually, by that time, Dill had actually come up to me, rolls around the corner, hands in the air, his little smiles, looking really good. And I was like, oh, no, here we go. So I pedaled over to Dill, had a quick chat to him. I think I've got over 3 kegs, and I was like, far out. Like, that's going to win. I'm not going to beat. That's going to be a real challenge to get even close to. So he said that. My heart sank. I looked in his line. His fish was huge, and I was like, he's done it again, but that's okay.
I still like him.
I was like, I still like him, but I hate him. I love him, but I hate him. I love to hate the guy. Got to cheer him on wherever possible. So anyway, at that point, I was like, all right, I'll fight for second. Still in my head thought, like with the 920 in the well, I could probably maybe fluke a couple of really nice fish.
Yeah.
I told Jill where I wanted to head, and I'm going to go back anyway. So I went further up, fished some stuff, didn't get any fish. But then I rocked up to a set of shacks, and I hadn't touched these the entire comp. And at one point, I was sitting in the middle of the river just before I got to these shacks, and I was fishing just the edges and came back into an edge and was fishing it, and I just wasn't feeling anything. And I was like, I want to turn my live scope on. So for those who know me, my Outback's heavy as hell and rigged up with a live scope on there. So I'm running the Lowrance HDS9 Live with Active Target 2 on there. And for all the comps I've ever fished, I've never turned it on. And I know that a lot of people that have live scope question their angling abilities after using it. But again, another wise point to those people is just go fishing first. And then if you really need it, turn it on.
Yeah, okay.
So until that point, so from Bem to Tasmania, I never turned it on once. And I just don't think you need to use it. You need to be more confident in your fishing abilities. But at that point, I was doubting myself after Dill come up to me. I hadn't caught a fish in a little bit. So I turned my live scope on and I started scoping these shacks. And I found some fish in there, and I was like, you beauty, wonderful. These fish are looking good. A lot of the other shacks either had 1 or 2 fish on them or no fish. And some of the fish that were on there, depending on if people have live scope Bream before, you can instantly see how a fish is looking and how it's moving around structure and seeing if it's active or not active. So what I found was groups of Bream huddled together, moving around through structure. And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted to see. It's what I've been fishing for the last 6 months is just trying to hone in my muss, my crab stuff, and just getting the basic foundations of tournament fishing under wraps. So I pitched in some muss a couple of times, and these fish just weren't reacting to it. And I was like, that's really strange, considering that the entire comp before that, were the go-to lure for everyone. But what I had seen in the past is that the way these fish were reacting were very receptive to a crab. Instantly had the rod rigged up, turned around, pitched it in, and within the first cast, I had some really good clunks. And I was like, they're eating it. To be fair, I didn't expect to get them on the crab, so I missed a couple of fish really quickly. But what I did find, and what Dylan and I really like to do, is suicide casts. So and it's really exacerbated when you can see it on live scope, these fish tucked up in this little corner in between 2 shacks, and there's a lot of really nasty structure in there.
Yeah, so have you ever wondered why we will walk into a shop and buy 20 of one lure? Now you know.
That's why.
Yes.
We don't expect them to return. Poor little soldiers.
You use it, you lose it.
That's right. And as far as I'm concerned, and Dylan will agree with me, crabs and mussels are disposable lures, even though they're $25 a piece.
Fair enough.
The rare day you tie it on and it goes back at clock, unfortunately.
That's right. So I'm pitching this crab, olive light crab, as everyone knows, and everyone uses on structure. Thanks, Morgo. Pitched it in, rounded it out, and actually got this lure quite away from the structure, they were still following it. You could see them on live scope. The fish all went down. They were just hovering around. You saw these little balls moving around where your lure was. And every so often you'd give it a flick just to see where your lure was on the live scope. And the fish would still be following it. But what I found on this day is you really just had to leave the crab just sitting there. And then you'd sit it there, and I reckon by about a minute would go past. And I have found this in some of the Metro Melbourne systems, is you just sit it there. And it's really painstakingly boring. And then you'd get a clunk. That was great. So this had a really nice fish. And again, this is where luck comes into competition, I think. But I had a really nice fish, clunked my crab, came out, turned around, and just with all of its might, and I'm running pretty hot, heavy drag, as Dill would have been as well, running pretty heavy drag, and this fish has just screamed me around that 5-10 metre mark and just railed me beyond belief. Goodbye, crap. So that was devastating, and it felt really solid. Like, out of all the fish that I've been fighting for the weekend, it certainly felt like it was at least the bigger category, if not bigger again. And I was like, this is painful, but it is what it is. You've got to keep grinding away. Turned around, took my brawler out of the rack, cut the leader off, had 6 pound on there, put 10 pound on, and went to war.
Okay.
I looked at it the same way that I looked at it in the Swan River in the racks, and I went to war. And I think it was my second or third last light crab that I had, and started pitching it away. Anyway, got a 920 gram fish. I was talking to one of the shack owners, and that was great. So I put him in the well, so my bag was starting to fill out nicely, and I thought, this is great. Went around, fished a few more shacks, and then saw this other fish lined up perfectly in some really shallow water on live scope, pitched in a crab, didn't even see it eat it, but I've just gone to shake it, and felt this fish just move, and it swum out well clear of where the structure was, turned around, came to the surface on its side in all of its glory of however large it was, and then just belted its way back towards the structure. But I'm running 10-pound leader at this time in a brawler. Like, that thing's not going back in there. Not going back in with my crab anyway. So I held the spool like I was fishing in the Swan River down in Tasmania, and bet the hooks out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So at this point, I'm starting to lose the war a little bit, and I was like, I'll fish that area for a little bit further, for a little bit more, and then just thought to myself, I'm going to make my way back down, and trying to think of where I got my next upgrade. Oh, actually, yeah, where I got my next upgrade is exactly where Dill told me that he caught his large fish.
Okay, fair enough.
So cast in, got one on the muss, and that was another upgrade, which is great. And then headed back down towards Taylor's, headed back through Taylor Strait, down the ski zone, and back into the Simpsons area again. And then I went to my favourite little rock and pitched in the mussel that had survived an entire weekend. I don't know how it had survived that point. Anyway, cast my little soldier of a muss into the rock, and this time it didn't return.
Oh, no.
I got annihilated again in spectacular fashion, and I was just, at that point...
Was that on 10 pound?
No, that one was back on the Altos, so 6 pound, so 7.3.
Yeah.
So I got torched again, because I hadn't been torched on 4 pound, hadn't been torched on that again, so I thought I won't be torched again. Anyway, it should have swum right, it went left, I lost the battle.
Oh, that's 3.
That's 3 fish that I've lost, 2 fish that have taken my lures. Anyway, tied on, I was back into my boring coloured musk vibes, which is just a dull grey, dark grey. I don't think the colour mattered at all. And then tied another one on and went to fish the bank again, and then cast into the best pocket of water that I'd probably seen for the entire trip. So the 2 tea trees side by side, boulder in the middle, little undercut bank behind it, and I thought, this is gonna hopefully end. Didn't end well. Got busted off again. And I was just like, this tournament wasn't meant to be won by me. So that basically, at that point, there was another scream from me. So there's 4 separate occasions of me losing my mind, very audible to people that were anywhere near me. At that point, I said to myself, that's enough musk for today. So I basically turned around, cruised my way back down, went past Simon Morley, had a chat to him, who Dill had worded up about how to fish the musk. So he was catching a few, and that was great. Went down, saw a few mates, and pedalled my way back to the ramp, thinking, I've done what I can do.
Yeah, that's it. It was a pretty good result anyway. But yeah, your last four major hookups, yeah,
Most of them ended in disaster. But I guess at the scheme of things, I bettered my bag from day one. I was happy with that. And for the last 4 events, all my bags have been over 5 kilos. So the average and I was pretty proud of my average and consistency in fishing. It's just on that day, Dylan landed the fish and I didn't.
That's it. And look, the other thing to take away from that is at least you hook the big fish. There's plenty of comps you go at and you don't even hook a big one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Like, it's a shame to lose them, but if you're hooking them, then you're always a chance.
Oh, if you're getting the bite, you're doing something right. Never leaving a lure in a fish, but
But I suspect after this, and especially from the comp, I need some more musk daily, so I'll be coming for you.
Fair enough. Hopefully, Cal.
That rounded out day 1. Day 2, sorry.
Day 2.
I think Dowley's musk sales are going to be going through the roof after the results of the top 10 of this round.
I think so. I think, everyone I've spoken to has had a bit of a crack at it. But look, and for you, Mitchell, mate, like we said, 268, you improved it slightly, 275 on day 2, and a total of 5.43 for your 6 fish is pretty awesome on any system.
Yeah, I'm not complaining at all. It was like, to be honest, it exceeded expectations considering how tough last year's comp sounded. And for Dill last year to not get 6 out of 6 fish was obviously a testament to how tough it actually was last year. So my goal for this comp was just to get 6 fish. So I was real happy by the time I had 6.
Yeah, that's it. All right. And just to give you an indication, Dylan, last year you weighed in for your 6 fish. Do you remember how much you weighed in?
You had 5 fish.
5 fish, sorry, I beg your pardon.
I reckon I had 4 fish last year.
Maybe.
No, you had 3.
Nah. I thought you had 3 on day 1 and 1.
I got 3 day 1, 1 day 2. Because I remember day 2, I got like a 720 gram fish and then got roasted like 3 times. That was the only bites I had. But they all got lucky.
All right. I'm looking at the wrong results. I beg your pardon. So you weighed in 2.93 for the 2 days with a total of 4 fish. So there you go. All right, let's roll around to comp day 2 for you, Dylan, and tell us how you went about winning the competition right from under Mitch's nose.
So day 2, cruised up with Crikey and Mitch. Mitch just bailed ahead, and by that stage I wasn't too far from sort of midway up Taylor's Strait, approaching my first bank, and straight away I noticed the bite was different. Day 1, they were definitely more sitting. I was finding I'd get my bites quite often on the second drop. Although I was casting tight, quite often it might come maybe 2 meters, 3 meters off the bank by the time you got that clunk. But it was always important to get your lure deep into the structure. Otherwise, I reckon they were following them out. Yeah.
But it's also, with the place as well, the second drop off is always different places. So some of it's like a foot wide, some of it's 2 meters wide, depending on where you are. Sometimes you'll never make it to the second drop. Sometimes you might be on the third drop off.
Yeah, literally.
It's a really interesting place. And I think, and Dill will find out, Dill knows, if you can see the place at low water level, you've got a lot better chance of winning a comp if you know what's under there.
You're going to see, and I think that's what's helped me in the past. I've seen that place when it is very low. So there's certain banks I remember, like little divots and parts where in front of this tree or in front of that boulder, you got this really cool spot. Or then the next 50 meters of the bank goes to shit. So that's helped. But pretty much pulled up on my first bank and I was getting a lot of rattles. But all of the first few hits I had were like ultra tight. Like the second drop off, your lure wasn't getting to it before it would get hit, or you just wouldn't get anything. First entire bank I fished, in all honesty, didn't even land one. I went up to the next bend in the river, and this is where my morning got really good. I'd only been fishing still for probably 10 minutes. It was early in the day, and I just saw the most X-book spot. Big mooner sitting in the water, nice and alive, so it's going to have lots of carrying capacity for small shrimp and all of that, with a big bit of timber hanging on the side. So I've cast it between the two, right to the back to an undercut as it sinks down, kept in contact, felt it thud the bottom and just go shake, crack. And then just gave this thing everything, and in the net, kilo fish within the first probably 20 casts of the day. I was very relieved to have a proper one, and I like in Jack Nelson, you're never going to upgrade that. If you do, something amazing's happened. Thought it couldn't get much better, and then next cast in, doesn't even hit the bottom, and it was a 980 grammer, decides to just bang that. Yeah, 980 or 960, something like that. I had the 2.
Wow.
And then...
For 2 kilos.
Yeah, pretty much 2 for 2 kegs. It was pretty... And it was funny, the third one actually took a little bit to come. So I think I got a little bit complacent after that, thinking, how good is this? And I ended up actually losing 4 fish, I remember clearly. So I fished the rest of that bank and another one, and yeah, dropped 4 fish, missed a few more. And it wasn't until I went up a bit further and I was like, all right, you got to concentrate on getting another one, and pulled hooks at the net, and then finally cast in and get like a 32 forker. And I was like, at the end of the day, there is 3 fish in the well, and that is a respectable bag as it is. But I was like, I reckon, you know what? I've still got a chance at upgrading that little one. So I'm going up river, and I made the strategic decision to pass on all the other banks that I'd the day prior. So I was like, though I knew a lot of other people had fished them, I knew that I had drilled them the day before. So I was like, there's going to be fish there. Chances are they're a little sketchy. I'm going to go to banks that look garbage, but are set up okay. So there's this one bait where I don't know if I've actually ever pulled a brim off. I know Paul Malov and myself have always ragged on it, but it just should have a fish. And as I get there today, I noticed one of the big Melaleuca trees had fallen into the water, and I was like, oh, that's set up a really interesting current break. I'm like, so I've doubled back around. I'm like, stuff it. I'll just put one cast in. The second this lure hit the water, I don't reckon it sunk half a foot before I see my line again, cutting water. I come up tight. This thing blasts into the tree, keeps going through the other side. I'm like, that's done. And all of a sudden, my line cuts through the tree. The branches go ping, and my line keeps going out into the middle of the river. So I back off, and then I see the fish. I'm thinking, here we go. And that was a 40 centimeters to the fork, 1.16 kilo, I think it was. So that thing got slid into the well, and I was a pretty happy boy after that. So I didn't think there'd be much more to do. So went up further to go fish the banks, which I thought Mitch would be on. And sure enough, he was there. So I just went and had a quick hello. Had to have a bit of a glow. Yeah.
It was a glow. Yeah, it was definitely a glow, wasn't it?
100% alone.
Came around the corner with your arms in the air. I saw you.
Yeah.
And then,
You were telling us the story about how you caught that fish. I could just see exactly how happy Mitchell was. He was just cheering that fish came out for you.
I know, right?
I was so over the moon.
The fact it didn't bust me off, I was surprised. I literally saw this thing bouncing through timber as I reached back on it, and I'm thinking, no way my leader's going to hold up. But I think the tree was soft enough that it was a bit more forgiving than some of the other barnacle encrusted logs. So he came out. Sorry.
Everyone tells me how hard it is to stay on the first place, but it would just be a lot easier, Dill, if you just didn't fish the comps.
Yeah, sorry.
Fair
like,
enough. All right.
After that, I was like, oh, Mick, you have those banks. Hopefully he could get a few good fish off it. I wanted to keep the competition alive there. So I ended up going back down the river. And literally, by this stage, it wasn't even 9 o'clock. The annoying thing of the day was my live, it just didn't want to work. So I had to sit there for the rest of the day just looking after those fish, bailing in water every 5 minutes. So I just kept floating down river, chatting to everyone on the way, and then got back down towards Simpson's Landing and kind of got bored enough to have another fish again. So started casting away and ended up catching some really good fish down there up that 860, 910 gram range. So a lot of really good fish, but nothing that was going to help me out too much. But yeah, it was pretty surreal, in all honesty, to be throwing fish of that caliber back at Glenelg River. You normally, if you catch 1 or 2 of those a session, you're pretty rapt. To see, like myself and a lot of other competitors getting bags over 2.5 kilo and some really quality fish, incredible to see. That sort of, in all honesty, wrapped up my day there. Ended up heading back in for about half an hour early, just making sure those fish were okay. And they were pretty lively. I think I've got a few nice puncture holes in my hands after trying to get those out of the live well. And for the whole new cull tag rule, try to get fish that size out of your live well again without a cull tag. Not an easy task.
No, it's going to change things up a little bit, particularly, I think, for the kayaks rather than the boaters.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's bad for the fish health as well. Like it takes about 10 minutes to upgrade a fish because you have to sit, especially if they're all very similar sizes. If there's a squeaker in there and there's a very clear small fish, it's not so bad. But if they're all relatively similar size, you have 4 fish flapping on the deck. So It's a bit challenging, but I guess, yeah, if everyone's fishing those comps with no cull tags, just be fast with your fish, guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this plays into the hands of the guys with the bigger live wells that maybe they can divide them up in some way.
Yeah,
Even if you can get two fish on one side and one on the other would be helpful.
Yeah, I think if you've got one of the live wells that's either made out of an esky or one of the big square ones, like putting a 3 dividers in there and having a 1, 2, 3, and so they match up with your scale, so you know which fish is which, is going to go a long way to preserving those fish. So I guess if the comp's going to keep going forward without cull tags, it'd be great we're probably going to have to change live wells to make sure it's really good for the fish and also fast and effective for anglers too.
Yeah, 100%.
Because having 3 fish, or literally 4, if you're upgrading, 4 fish flapping on the deck of your kayak, losing scales, losing slime, that's honestly unacceptable. It's not good enough.
Sure. Yeah. Anyway, so Dylan, you ended up, you got all your fish early on and they all came on the must?
All on the must. So like I mentioned on pre-fish, I've had a few different patterns and yeah, throughout the day, like particularly day 2, I actually did, on the way back down, I was mucking around again, fishing spike. Couldn't get them eaten, mucked around with grubs, no good, mucked around with risky critters. And it was just, I think just the way those fish were positioned a little bit deeper and how slow the bite was. I think those more reaction style baits just were getting ignored. Like you just had to be super natural, super in the zone. And the biggest thing, like I think anyone who did this comp would have seen, open your live, what's in it? There's not many crab legs, like not in mine. I saw a few people who had them, but the main thing was I would have had, I reckon, 20 to 30 grams of mussel shells at the bottom, like just insane amounts of mussel that were crushed up and spewed out. So it was obvious that's what they were locked onto. Like you think about it, that river mouth being closed, nutrient levels are going up, those mussels are filtering lots of good fresh water, taking in all the goodies, and they're probably plump and ripe for the brim. So that's what they were really tucking into.
Fair enough. All right, guys, I reckon that covers the fishing for both of you guys. So we're going to come back to you, Mitch. For your second place down there, what did you get to take home?
So I didn't get an AC. Well, I would have got an AC spot, but that's been handed down to some of the people below me, which is really good. So I got a nice little prize pack filled with some of the sponsor stuff. That was Pro Lure, with some plastics in there, I think some vibes and a crankbait, which is really cool. Some Alex D Sunnies, which are awesome. I got a gift voucher for HWS, which is fantastic as well. What else did I get? Some Hurricane products as well. Great little goodie bag in there. Stoked with that. I got $513 as well, which is always good and pays for a weekend away, which is fantastic. But I also got a spot to the South Australian Championships too. That's 2 championships in a year.
Yeah, how good is that?
I know. We'll have to see if we make it over to the South Australian one, but it sounds fun. And I absolutely love the South Australian guys and made a fair few friends with the guys down there, so it'd be great to go catch up with them over there.
Definitely. And you would have got a little trophy, I'd imagine.
I got a plaque. There was no little trophy. No. I wish I did, but anyway, we'll have to try and make the little plaque thing look nice.
Fair enough. Very good. All right. And Dylan, mate, first place.
Yes.
Slightly above Mitch. What'd you end up getting, mate?
It was I have looked on the table right next to me. Ooh, $861, which was very nice. And then for the big brim, I got that as well. 1.16, was it? Like that, kilos. That was a Burley Pro Kimmy cart. Not a bad little price. Yeah. And yeah, goodie bag as well. So that had everything from Sunnies, Mitch mentioned, a lot of really good hurricane stuff, TT blades, a lot of really good Pro Lure stuff. So there was foam prawns, paddle grub, vibes, few of the cranks. So lots of stuff that will actually get thrown. That's what I really appreciate with that prize pack. There's pretty much everything in there. I was like, I will actually genuinely use that. I'm going to Hobie sun shirt. You can never have enough of those. Always good. And yeah, HWS voucher, $150. So that'll get put to probably fixing my live well, I'm sure, or just replacing the whole thing altogether.
Oh, mate, loving pants. That's the go.
I have been told, but I don't know. Has to wear shorts, otherwise I'll die.
Yeah. Shorts only. You can't reach top speed in pants.
No, wear the pink short, wear the shorts over the top, mate. It'll be all right.
Yeah, you still can't reach top speed.
Now, that's a fashion statement I can embrace.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So, look, two more things. Does that cover everything there, Dylan?
Yeah.
With your prizes and what have you?
I think that was everything.
And the invitation to the South Australian comp.
Yeah. Oh, there was actually I don't know if you got them, Mitch, but there's a really cool pair of GFAB flyers in there too, which I was drooling over earlier. So quite keen to bust them out.
Yep. First place only. All right. So before we move on to your shout outs, can I get one of you guys to just tell the listeners again about the podcast that you guys have done in the past and we may see again in the future?
All right. Still got to talk about it last time.
You go.
Two wins in a row. But no, Dill can chime in on this one. So, yeah, we've got a little podcast. We haven't released too much stuff in there for the last little while, but we keep talking about it. We want to get it back up and running. So it's called On the Cast. You can find it on all major platforms, Spotify, anything else that you like to listen to. And it's not just bream stuff. Obviously, Dylan and I have been really into our bream fishing over the last few years, but we talk about estuary perch, Murray cod, bass, GTs, barra, a whole bunch of different stuff with a bunch of different guys all around the country. And we've also talked about some stuff at Christmas Island as well. So I think it was Christmas Island and overseas too, about some GT stuff with some international listeners. So it's a diverse thing. I think we'll get it back up and running. We have a bunch of ideas, but we're just trying to find some time.
Yeah, it's good fun doing it. It's just finding time to punch them out at the minute is nuts. But some great ones. Like, yes, there's some crackers with Adam Reuter and all that kind of crew. Yeah, if you want to be in stitches and listen to us talk shit for a while, and you might learn something too. Who knows? But yeah. Few good pie recommendations in there. You never know.
I love a good pie.
You can find out where our 2 and 3 pie bakery recommendations are.
And one other thing we like to talk about is a lot of the science as well that relates to fishing too. On the back of Dylan and I, as our love for fishing, we've also studied marine biology at university. So we relate a lot of what we see on water back to the science, and I think there's a few translations that can elevate angling as well. Might not hear it in the podcast, but it happens. There
you go. So get on that, guys, on the cast. All right, Mitch, before we head off, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out for?
So first of all, say thanks to my partner, Rena, for holding up the fort while I'm away, looking after our dog, Kuba. Always grateful for her to be around and look after that little guy. I'd like to thank Gibbsy and the team at BMSA for a really great, well-run comp. And I like Gibbsy's short and sharp conversations up the front. It keeps the line flowing quickly. No one has to sit around, but most of all, that fish health stays really good. So really appreciate how he runs the comp. I'd like to say thanks to Dale for organising the house. It's always great when someone does the admin work for your competition and you just have to rock up and pay the money. And then obviously I'd like to say big thanks to Dylan for wising me up on where to go and what to fish. To be fair, I'll give Ryan Newman credit for that one. So thanks to Ryan Newman for wording me up for that. I'd like to also say thanks to Paul Malov. We had some really good conversations for a couple of days before the competition, and he gave me a lot of good information and spots and things that have worked for him in the past. And hopefully I've given him a bit of information on how the system fished for when he goes down in a few weeks' time. And hopefully he can end up in a really good position as well. I suspect it'll open by then and it'll change completely, but who knows. And after that, I'm sure I've missed someone, but that's about it. I think. Thanks to everyone involved as well. You can't win if you don't have competitors, so it's always nice to see a good turnout as well.
Definitely. It was a great little turnout there. And Dylan, mate, same to you, mate. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Biggest, of course, has to go to the whole Bream Master scene there. Like those guys put on a great comp. And big thanks to Hobie for supporting them and affiliating with them, because otherwise we probably wouldn't be down there getting points and mingling with that crowd, as it is a really fun social event too. Oh, got to thank John, Dale and Mick for having let's just say hilarious house together. Too many laughs in that place. Got a bit wild. Too many lines crossed, but great fun. Andy at Ebb Tide Tackle, he's always supported me for the last few years, and big thanks. Couldn't do it without him for many things there. And my partner, Ali, he always supports me when I am vanishing, chasing fish in the far reaches of this lovely state of ours and further afield. And big shout out as well to everyone who went down. So people like Simon Morley, 13-hour drive to go to what can often be an absolute horrible system, but hat off to you. That's awesome. So it's a really, like, the whole Hobie community over the whole East Coast and even West Coast of the country. It's a pretty awesome thing. Everyone supports each other. Really great community. And yeah, it's something I'm very happy to be part of.
All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Look, I want to say thanks for you both coming on and doing something a little bit different with a dual interview together and a few laughs along the way, a couple of cheap shots at each other. And hopefully I'll get to see you and talk to you again soon.
Who knows? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Get this streak rolling. 3 in a row.
Fingers crossed. if I can't come first, if I can't beat Dill, second's not so bad.
Fair enough, mate. Second to your mates is a very good place to be.
Don't worry, I have to suck at some point.
We'll see, mate. We'll be sure to remind you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. We're going to leave it there, and I'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks, Stevie.
Okay, so there you have it, everybody. A little bit of a different episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always good to see two mates come 1 and 2. When I used to fish with my good mate Stewie Dunn, in all the comps we only did it one time, and that was on our local, and Stewie was the winner. So there you go. In any case, I'm going to wrap this one up really quickly. If you haven't already gone across to the new Instagram account, just go over and give us or follow or what have you there. If you've not been on YouTube and you can go across there and subscribe, that would be awesome as well. Either way, I appreciate you listening. And guess what? If you're still here, there's a new episode on Thursday. So hang around for that. And I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired, and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.